December 16, 2021, Thursday. Good morning, this is Bernaline D. Hoa.
Muads and Ibrahim, and you are watching ABC Newscast, where we talk about the history of the Philippines.
Today, the Group 4 has come to present to you the Rizal's annotation on Succesos de las Islas Filipinas.
Or in English, events in the Philippine Islands. Ms. Bernaline Hoa will be the first one to present on its contextual analysis.
Good day, everyone. My name is Bernaline D. Hoa, 17 years of age, a member of Group 4, and I will be presenting to you the background information of Antonio de Morga, who is the author of Succesos de las Islas Filipinas. Antonio de Morga Sanchez Garay, born on November 29, 1559, and died on July 21, 1636, was a Spanish soldier, lawyer, and a high-ranking colonial official for 43 years in the Philippines, in the year 1594 to 1604. In New Spain and Peru, he was the president of the Real Audiencia for 20 years. He was also a historian. After being reassigned to Mexico, he published the book Succesos de las Islas Filipinas in 1609, considered one of the most important works on the early history of the Spanish colonization of the Philippines. As deputy governor in the Philippines, he restored the Audiencia. He took over the function of judge or oidor. He also took command of Spanish ships in a 1,600 naval battle against Dutch corsairs, but suffered defeat and barely survived. Antonio de Morga Sanchez Garay was born in Seville. He graduated from the University of Salamanca in 1574, and in 1578 received a doctorate in canon law. He taught briefly in Osuna, and then returned to Salamanca to study civil law. In 1580, he joined the government service as a lawyer. Among other positions in Spain, he held that of Auditor Generals of the Galleys. In 1582, he was serving as a mayor of Baracaldo in Vizcaya when he first married to Juana de Briviesca de Monotones. On July 10, 1603, Morga was reassigned to Mexico, in command of the ship sailing that year for New Spain. He became alcalde of criminal causes in the Royal Audiencia of Mexico City. He was also advisor to the Viceroy of Military Matters and counsel for the Holy Office of the Inquisition. He served in Mexico until 1615, publishing his History of the Philippines in 1609, which has become noted for its account of the early colonial years and has been translated into numerous languages and published in many editions. In 1615, he was named President of the Audiencia of Quito, within the Viceroyalty of Peru. He arrived in Guayaquil on September 8, 1615, having narrowly escaped falling into the hands of Dutch corsairs off the island of Santa Clara. He took up his office in Quito on September 30, 1615. During his administration, the textile industry advanced and the University of San Gregorio Magno was founded. In 1625, de Morga was investigated for corruption and arrested. On September 18, 1627, he was cleared of the charges and his offices were restored to him. He died in 1636. Except for the period of 1625 to 1627, he held the position of President of the Audiencia of Quito for 20 years, from 1615 until the year of his death. Most presidents of the Audiencia served about 5 years. Even as he aged, Morga pursued women. Shortly before his death in 1636, he was relieved of his duties. He was fined 2,000 gold ducats for having lewd relationship with much publicity with many women.
Good day, everyone. This is Muads and Ibrahim from Group 4. Today, I would like to tackle my assigned topic, the contextual analysis, which is condition of place when it was created.
According to Rizal, as a colony of Spain, the Philippines was depopulated, impoverished, and retarded. Astounded by metamorphosis with no confidence in her past, still without faith in their present, and without faltering hope in the future. It says that the Filipinos were decimated, demoralized, exploited, and ruined by the Spanish colonization, and before the coming of Spaniards, Filipinos had a culture on their own. Rizal also stated that little by little, Filipinos lost their old traditions, the mementos of their past. They gave up their writings, their songs, their poems, their laws in order to learn other doctrines which they did not understand. Another morality, another aesthetic, different from those inspired by their climate and manner of thinking. They declined, degrading themselves in their own eyes. They became ashamed of what was their own. They began to admire and praise whatever was foreign and incomprehensible. Their spirit was damaged and it surrendered. The Philippines was slowly becoming a depressed country and Filipinos can't do whatever they want. Rizal's annotation of Succesos de las Islas Filipinas is one of the reasons why Filipinos and other foreign countries know what really happened when Spanish colonized Philippines.
I am Joshua Flores and I'm going to discuss the content analysis about the important historical information found in the document. Content analysis of important historical information found in the document. On our prepared document, we searched and found the historical documents with my partner Isa. The following information about Antonio Morga and his Succesos de las Islas Filipinas. It is a document of events that during the Spanish colonial period of Philippines as observed by the author himself. He selected the Succesos because he considered it necessary to invoke the testimony of an illustrious Spaniard who governed the destinies of the Philippines in the beginning of a new era and witnessed the last moment of our ancient nationality. Antonio de Morga's Succesos de las Islas Filipinas is a classic account of the first decades of Spanish expansion into the Philippines, the only such account written by a Spanish layman until the 19th century. Dr. Cummins deserves much credit for a model job for scholarly editing the interpretation. Rizal emphasized that Morga was the evidence and the primary source of history in the Philippines. Rizal argued that the Filipino before has their own culture, did not require a new religion or civilization from Spain. The Suceso de las Islas Filipinas was recognized since long day ago. The first original history handwritten in Asia, Morgan's work is based on personal experience. Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas is a book that written and published by the Antonio de Morga as one of the most important works of the early history of the Spanish colonization of the Philippines. And aside from Morga's work, our documents also view that the work of Jose Rizal, which is Rizal Annotation, when Rizal published his annotation of Antonio de Morga's Sucesos in 1890. Rizal was convinced that the enduring and unifying strength of all great societies lies in their collective sense of tradition, a tradition that is carried forth and becomes the people culture's history. It is considered one of the most important works on the early history of the Spanish colonization of the Philippines. As deputy governor in the Philippines, he restored the audience, he took over the function of judge or auditor. It is important to know and learn about our country history because it is also part of our life, of our person and as a citizens in this Philippines. It is considered as immoral by those older generation because what happened in the past is what made us. It is made us on how it is now with how our country's foundation right now. We would not know a thing upon how it stands if we don't know the past.
Good day everyone, my name is Aiza Jazira Anduhul Insia and I'm going to discuss important historical information about Succesos de las Islas Filipinas and Morga's purpose of writing Succesos de las Islas Filipinas. The discovery of Morga's Succesos de las Islas Filipinas proved to be serendipitous to Rizal. He had been rethinking the idea of the Filipino not as a people who were equal to their Spanish colonizers, but a people with a unique civilization that was destroyed by colonization. Rizal found the answer to his idea in Morga's book, and it was this work that he decided to reprint with his annotations. Dr. Antonio de Morga, 1559 to 1636, was an energetic, gifted, and versatile bureaucrat who served under three kings in the audiencias of the Philippines, Mexico, and Quito. Pious and sensual, petty and gifted with vision, his career represents some of the strengths and weaknesses of the incipient professional bureaucracy that bore the main responsibility for governing the empire. His career ended in disgrace in 1636 during a turbulent Visita General. Dr. Morga, as president of the Royal Audiencia of Quito, was convicted of a whole series of infractions ranging from his weaknesses for the ladies to illegal mercantile interests to smuggling Chinese silks disguised as his personal library. Whatever may have been his personal shortcomings, Dr. Morga was a vigorous and able administrator. It was not only to provide the Filipino people their early history, a pre-Spanish history, but to present to them their own authentic culture and identity. The Morga annotations provided the needs of the idea of how the Filipinos should view themselves amidst a growing nationalism that eventually led to the formation of a nation. Not the least of his accomplishments was his Succesos de las Islas Filipinas, first published in Mexico in 1609. The Hakluyt Society published the first English edition, edited by Baron Stanley of Alderley in 1868. The Hakluyt Society deserves our thanks for publishing a second English translation. James S. Cummins, the editor of a previous Hakluyt volume on the travels and controversies of Friar Domingo Navarrete, was a happy choice as the editor of the new Morga edition. Dr. Cummins was provided us with an accurate, graceful, and entirely new translation of the Spanish text with a host of appropriate footnotes. If only for this reason, the new edition should be in the library of all scholars of Iberian expansion overseas. Furthermore, the new translation could be used to advantage as supplementary reading in a colonial history course for undergraduates. The title literally means Events in the Philippine Islands, and thus the book's primary goal is the documentation of events during the Spanish colonial period of the Philippines as observed by the author himself. The book also includes Filipino customs, traditions, manners, and religion during the Spanish conquests.
Good day everyone, my name is Shiraini Ayhajan and I am going to discuss about the relevance of Rizal's annotation of Morga's Succesos de las Islas Filipinas. In Jose Rizal's dedication, he explained among other things the purpose of the new edition of Morga's Succesos. According to him, if the book succeeds in awakening in you the consciousness of our past which has been obliterated from memory and in rectifying what has been falsified and calumniated, I shall not labor in vain, and on such basis, little though it may be, we call it devote ourselves to studying the future. In order for us to know the relevance of Rizal's annotation in present time, we must bear in mind that there were three main propositions made in Rizal's new edition of Morga's Succesos de las Islas Filipinas according to Guerrero in 1998. Number 1. The people of the Philippines had a culture on their own before the coming of the Spaniards. Rizal wanted to emphasize that we Filipinos had our enriched culture even before the Spanish colonization. Number 2. Filipinos were disseminated, demoralized, exploited, and ruined by the Spanish colonization. During the Spanish colonization, the Filipinos suffered a lot in the hands of Spaniards. Lastly, the present state of the Philippines was not necessarily superior to its past. What happened in the past would serve as a lesson that we Filipinos must reflect on. What Dr. Rizal wanted is to create a sense of national consciousness or identity and to awaken ourselves that as a Filipino, we are not just a Spanish colonized country. Hence, we have our own origins, and no one could ever take that from us because we are Filipinos and we stand for what's ours.
My name is Jesus S. Puntanal III and I'm working on the relevance of Rizal's annotation in Morga, Succesos de las Islas, Filipinas. Contribution. When Rizal published his annotation of Antonio de Morga Succesos in 1890, he had already traveled in parts of Spain, France, Germany, Czechoslovakia, Australia, Switzerland, Italy, China, Hong Kong, Japan, the United States, and England. He could converse in Spanish, French, German, Italian, Japanese, and English. He was only 29 years old. In his travels, he familiarized himself with each country's history, customs, ways of life, and language. He held the common sense belief that learning a people's language will open the treasure of a country. That is, the knowledge, the learning, and its own way of thinking. Although he was interested in the social and scientific progress he witnessed abroad, and understood the factor that lead to such advancement, he was even more fascinated by the collage of cultural symbols that become embraced by a people as their own national identity. A consummate student of ancient and modern history, Rizal was convinced that the enduring and unifying strength of all great societies lies in their collective and sense of tradition. A tradition that carries forth and becomes that people's cultural history. By publishing his annotated version of De Morga Succesos de las Islas Filipinas, Rizal's intent was not only to provide the Filipino people their early history, a pre-Spanish history, but to present to them their own authentic culture and identity. Aware of most of the books written about the Philippines, he selected the Succesos because he considered it necessary to invoke the testimony of an illustrious Spaniard who governed the destinies of the Philippines in the beginning of his new era and witnessed the last moment of our ancient nationality. His annotation included clarification and amplification of details, refutation of statements where necessary, and confirmation when checked against other sources. Rizal offered the annotated Succesos to the Filipinos with the wise counsel that to foretell the destiny of a nation, it is necessary to open the book that tells of his past.
Before we end our report,
We want to tell you something.
we know these past few days we all had a tough and challenging days.
But we know even how stressful our days will be, it won't stop us from doing what we want to achieve our dreams. Padayon.